a TX200 177 Hunter carbine, fish scale stock, standard gun. I'm going to strip this down, just give it an inspection and a relube. Very, very simple gun to strip. You just need your Allen keys to undo your stock bolts to start with. The old pellet tin always comes in handy for keeping hold of the bolts, stopping them from walking. I'm doing this one in particular because somebody asked me how to do it, so I thought it's been a while since I've had this one to bits, and just check how the lubrication is on it, etc, etc. There's just 4 simple bolts to get the stock off. One thing I'm not going to do on this is I'm not going to mess with the trigger, because the trigger on this is absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, not play with it at all. And then actually 3 big, small Allen bolts moved. I've got this one last big one. Trigger guard. And then the whole stock should just pop off like so. So there you go, that's the first part. Nice and straightforward and simple. I'm going to actually leave the scope on this just for this simple inspection, because I can. The thing that holds in the whole trigger block assembly is that one bolt there. So that's the next stage. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I've got a 10mm spanner, and just take a little bit of pressure off of that. Just loosen it off a little bit. Now the spring is pushing against the whole of this block assembly, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to weigh down on it just a little bit, take the pressure off that bolt. So effectively I'm holding the pressure of the spring like so, and then it all comes nicely under control, apart like that. Now then, that will allow the trigger block to slide out like so, all as one, and there you can see there's my guide, spring, piston, etc. So, step 1. This is Titan spring, tin bum guide. Okay, spring and guide removed. Shove that out of the way. The next thing I need to do is I need to get out the actual piston and compression chamber. So I need to remove this little circlet, which can be a bit fiddly. Let's have a little go. Just hold it one side and push it the other. There we go. Circle it. Make sure that don't spring across the room, and then just push this through. Like so. And what I can do is I can push that along there. Cock and shoe will at that point just slide out, and the rest of my assembly will just push out to the back end like so. So there is the disassembled gun. Now then, we can see that everything's in pretty good order. I put a new seal on it, piston seal on it, the last time I had it apart. This latch rod is actually 10mm longer, giving a 10mm short stroke in effect. So we'll clean this little lot up, and then okay, relube time. the top hat and there's one power washer there was actually stuck up the middle of the piston, so that's taken a little bit of fiddling to get that out, but we're all out now. So I've got me moly grease and my brush, so I can now just grease up the spring and the guides as I want them. I tend not to use a vast amount of grease, basically because I just don't need it. So give that a nice covering. There's enough there. Okay, that's that part. Next part is I'm going to put a little bit of moly grease on the actual Delrin rings, because they're going to be sliding up and down inside the gun itself, and a little bit of paper towel because I don't want to get any of that on that piston seal. And then last of all, I'm just going to give that a wipe with some liquid moly around the back edge of that piston seal. I don't want any at the front, as that just causes dieseling. Okay, so as you can see, standard TX piston, and effectively with the TX piston, because it's got the Delrin bearings front and back, it's effectively like a V-glide to start with. That's why these guns are so good. Okay, so that's that assembly put back together. We can now start feeding it all back into the gun. So that all fits like so, all nice and straightforward. Our cocking shoe, can go back into there. Want to get it lined up like so. Just remember to open the bear trap to allow everything to move. Right, so that's back in. I'll just move some grease out of the way so we don't get covered. Okay, I'll just put the circlip back in to hold the cocking lever in place. There we go. And then circlip just to lock it, and that should push on pretty straightforward. There we go. Right, so that's the assembly back together like so. I'll nicely re-grease. The last thing I want to do is just put a little bit of grease in there, the liquid, and I'm going to wipe that round because I don't want too much. Just to give that a nice bit of lubrication that way. Okay, next part. We can now slide in the greased up spring and top hat, whoops, and power washer. Now I'm going to glue the power washer to the end of that with a little bit of grease, just to make it stay there, and then everything can slide together like so. Okay, these have got to be one of the simplest guns to strip and reassemble that there is. Now we've got the trigger block. Again, like I said before, I'm not messing with this at all because this trigger is set up lovely, absolutely lovely. It's all nicely oiled and greased and how I want it anyway, so that's how it's staying, not taking it apart. And I'm just going to repeat in reverse the same procedure that I use for putting it together. So just lean on it, a little bit of pressure, line it up, stick on a couple of threads like so. Get my 10mm spanner and just tighten it, and that's your gun back together. As simple as that. Re-greased, re-lubed, everything as you want it. Okay, the stock, again, extremely simple. We've got our 4 Allen screws, like so. I like to put all these in but not tighten them up, just start the threads off. Like so. Line it up, start the threads off. The last one, line it up, start the threads off. So they're all in. Now I can just go around and tighten them all up. 1, 2, 3, and the big one. 4. And there we go. One TX200 stripped, relubed, reassembled.